Is tanking fixed in Midnight? That is a question that nobody can answer right now, but what we can answer is which are the tanks that are most fun with all of this reworking and pruning, and maybe we can revitalize the role? We have tested and played all of the tanks in the alpha with the limited amount of content that we had access to, so take that with a pinch of salt as we're looking at some of the best and some of the least best type reworks that you can expect from the tank specs going into Midnight. From a fun perspective, starting off really quick with Blood Death Knight, which has received quite a significant tool of rework type thing with a lot of stuff going around. I mean, we don't have Bone Storm anymore. We don't have Consuming Bone Shields, reduces the cooldown of Dancing Rune Weapon at all. And we're kind of still missing, I guess, 2 talents, their choice nodes right now. But as of recording this, they're not there yet. Although hopefully with the beta being released next week, we can actually know what those are, since we kind of want all the talents. But what's good about Blood Decay is that Abomination Limb is in your tree as a choice node with Gorfien's Grasp, something that Unholy and Frost did not get, and I can already hear the pitchforks and the fires burning in the background. With that out of the way, the Apex Talents are actually kind of fun with how they're interacting and all of the Dancing Rune Blade spawns, and if you play Sand Lane, you can have about 5 total Blood Plagues out at some point. Obviously empowered by the Sand Lane tree, and also with the new Consumption that now is an empowered ability, very controversial, but as an empowered ability it now consumes the Blood Plague, aptly named by the way, which is about time, and deals a lot of that damage instantly with quite a lot of bit of burst. Now, it's still a little bit early to see exactly how it will perform at the top end, but we're talking about fun in terms of rotation, so I would like to consider Blood Decay a little bit more fun than it is right now in live. It's still not perfect. I'm not a big fan of Bone Storm, but losing a bunch of buttons and spenders of your runic power kind of feels a little bit meh, to be fair, and I'm still not sold on just having fewer buttons on a tank that already had very few buttons. So we'll see how that develops over time. And next we have Brewmaster. Currently kind of still feels like it's under construction right now, although it did receive most of its talents so far. This is another tank that was a little bit hard to tell how it actually operates when you're tanking things, because similar to Blood Decay and with a lot of other tanks as well, if you're not taking a lot of damage, you're not really sure if your talents are fun, because a lot of the talents that Brewmaster has are about purifying the stagger damage that you take, staggering the damage in neat and interesting ways, but obviously that's not really happening. And it did receive a couple of new talents, with Exploding Keg having new capstones right now, where you just detonate stuff around you, whether it's fire damage or physical damage. By the way, Apex talents kind of work around Keg Smash, throwing empty barrels at enemies, dealing additional physical damage, and at the same time we got a capstone, not a capstone, but a node that increases the fire damage that you deal and heals you for, I think at the moment is 40% of the fire damage that you deal, which is not a lot of fire damage, so that's not a lot of healing. It kind of feels a little bit like they're still missing some tweaks here and there to kind of make it feel like it accomplishes the purpose that they saw for it. And the talents right now are kind of a little bit underwhelming. Losing Weapons of Order is, I guess, kind of nice, because it was a weird cooldown to have for Brewmaster, and baking it all into New Zao is not terribly bad, because Brewmaster was one of the most egregious offenders of button bloat, so it did get pruned significantly. I think the best thing that we lost is Rising Sun Kick, and now pretty much all of its interactions are baked into Blackout Kick, and that feels great, but we still have Rushing Jade Wind! Why? Why? That's the shittiest ability that the spec has. How do we lose Rising Sun Kick and Weapons of Order, but we still have this goddamn useless... This is the first bloat ability you would think of Brewmaster having bloat abilities when you thought about Brewmaster having bloat abilities, but I digress. With that out of the way, I'm still a little bit on the fence with Brewmaster. It plays okay, but the fun of Brewmaster was never really juggling a lot of the DPS spells, because if that's fun for you, you're gonna lose a bunch of that since you have fewer buttons to press right now. But the fun was actually taking large amounts of damage, transforming it into stagger, and then deleting that stagger. And now they've also removed Purified Chi. I just remembered. So Celestial Brew doesn't even scale properly, and it's a kind of like a pitiful number. I think it's about 14% of your total HP, and Brewmaster has the least amount of HP out of all of the tanks. That's just not a lot of HP. or shield absorb in this case. So I don't know what to do, but I know what you should do, and you should hit the like button and subscribe if you like our videos, and it will definitely help us out and get the channel to grow bigger, stronger, so that we can deliver bigger, stronger videos. Videos cannot be stronger, but your support is indeed stronger and highly appreciated, especially if you want to support us a little bit more and hop onto our Patreon team, which is at patreon.com/Marcelian&Flame, for which we also have some goodies ready for you if you're so inclined as to like those types of goodies. But we appreciate you nonetheless. Thank you for all of this, and enjoy the rest of the video, because right now we're going into Bear, and now we're getting to some of the good changes, although it still feels like it needs a lot of work. So Bear right now lost Rage of the Sleeper and a lot of other passive talents that rewarded you playing. For instance, the Iron Fur spam, Thorns of Iron, is gone, so you're not going to macro your Iron Fur anymore into all of your buttons. And we lost Tooth and Claw, debatable, because that usually, with it Vicious Cycle as well, doesn't really matter. But what that matters is that you're not weaving in Mangles and Mauls or Mangles and Raises anymore. That was kind of like a fun playstyle, but instead we got Sundering Roar right now, which is very weak, but the concept is really good. So hopefully if they buff this properly, will become a valuable talent, since I'm pretty sure that some hero talents actually use this, so you will need to have this talented ASAP. What this does essentially is that it lets your Thrashes stack 5 more times, and you have another talent that lets Thrash stack all the way up to 5. So with Sundering Roar, you can stack it up to 10. The problem is that the duration of this Roar buff is so short that you never actually have enough time to stack all of those Thrashes to 10, let alone have those 10 stacks actually do relevant amount of damage. But of course, once the Roar expires, all of the additional stacks explode in the damage that they would normally have dealt. That's a cool concept, but Thrash doesn't really do that much damage so far, unless you buff it with stuff like Loon's Chosen with Lunation. I think, is it Lunation? Whatever makes Thrash deal arcane damage. But of course, this is just tuning, so we're not going to talk about tuning. However, spamming Thrash is definitely very fun. Hopefully, we can have a more physical approach to Bear, because we did get a new arcane talent in Red Moon. Red Moon replaces Moonfire, and it actually becomes a single target Moonfire that has a cooldown and does quite a bit of damage, and you can extend its dot duration by pressing Mangle, which also received a bunch of buffs, but that's kind of cool. I mean, I kind of miss when Mangle meant something. But the rage issues with Bear are going to be very apparent, because Galactic Guardian is responsible for a lot of rage generation, and if you don't play the arcane talents, you're definitely gonna feel the lack of rage from the physical part. So I hope they take another look at that, because actually Bear is decent, way more fun than it is right now on live. Surprisingly complex, especially with the Apex talents that now echo your, no, they don't echo your ability, they empower your abilities after incarnation ends. I think it's when it ends. Either way, they're really cool. A little bit over the top and a little bit pointless in their effect, because Bear doesn't really take advantage of a lot of the stuff like extra healing from Frenzy Regeneration, since you already heal so much from Frenzy Regen, you don't really need that. But we'll see how things develop, but it's looking better for Bear than a lot of other tanks right now. Prot Paladin is also, I feel, still under construction, because part of the pruning that affects Prot Paladin probably most out of all of the tanks is to remove all of the not only aura stacking but aura tracking as well. When I say aura stacking, I meant how Prot Paladin compounds the mitigation tools that it has to become actually tanky on life, where you have normally Shield of the Righteous, you also have Consecration, you also have, I think it's called Strength in Adversity, where you fire up your Avenger's Shield and you gain parry chance based off of how many enemies you hit. You also have Holy Shield, which blocks spells. By now is actually your mastery, your new mastery is just baked into your mastery, and I think your block chance gets doubled when it comes to blocking spells, so that's cool. I mean, they're baking this fantasy into Paladin, which I totally support and love. I like that this is the theme of Paladin. It's stapled in, it's in the foundation. But with that out of the way and a bunch of other talents that give you absorb shields and heals, you also had Faith in the Light, where Word of Glory gave you a block chance, and that was a pretty big one. I think it was also Barricade of Fate on live. Faith in the Light and Barricade of Fate are essentially gonzo, donzo, bonzo. They're no longer there. However, you still have about 3 to 4, I think it's 4 yet still mitigation layers of tankiness on top of each other that you will end up stacking. Granted, Consecration is no longer as strong. You only get 4% damage reduction if you take, I believe, Sanctuary, and that's it. Your mastery doesn't increase the damage reduction that you have in Consecration whatsoever, or it doesn't include it whatsoever, but it still feels like it's missing a little bit. Thankfully, Sentinel received its damage back, which is really cool. Prot Paladin has always been really fun, but I cannot put it not yet into S tier because it's still missing a little bit, and I feel like we're just kind of waiting on it. The Apex sounds are kind of cool, but I don't feel like it's there just yet. Now, Prot Warrior. Whew, am I gonna be biased here? So Prot Warrior didn't really receive a lot of changes because, I mean, it just got reworked in 11.2, and I'm pretty sure that when it got reworked in 11.2, similar to other specs that have, it was reworked with the philosophy of Midnight in tune, because obviously it lost a bunch of buttons. It got, I don't know if Avatar was still there yet. Prot Warrior and Fury still had Avatar. It got Ravager again, and now it has a bunch of cool execute talents, but what's important is that its Apex talents function very heavily on Shield Slam, and that's great. But one thing that Prot Warrior actually lost is Revenge, being able to hit all AoE targets, and I am understanding this, that Revenge hitting 3 targets, which is the current situation right now on Alpha, probably soon Beta as well, is an old mechanic of Revenge, and that's not really good. Not for a spec that wants the big damage into Revenge, considering that we've just left a bunch of seasons in Door Within where aggro was actually a problem. So limiting the amount of enemies that I can hit with my spell does not help with aggro issues, and I don't think tanks should be AoE capped at any point in time, because aggro is indeed a problem. And because Revenge only hits 3 targets, now you kind of have to do some math. Okay, when do I press Revenge? Whirlwind somehow deals more damage than Revenge in big AoE. Do they want to push Whirlwind into us when Whirlwind was essentially a bloat talent, but now it's actually a bloat talent because it's actually on your bars? Do they want Prot Warriors to Whirlwind? I mean, I don't necessarily dislike it, but it kind of feels like now we have Thunderclap, Revenge, and Whirlwind. Thunderclap applies Rend. Revenge does decent damage, quite a bit on 3 targets, and both of these actually reset Shield Slam. It doesn't feel like Whirlwind resets Shield Slam whatsoever, it just deals damage. So I don't know exactly what this is supposed to be, because the playstyle of Protection is still really, really, really fun. And I'm gonna do something that I don't think we normally ever do in our tier list, is to not put this into S tier. It's still pretty fun. I don't think it's S tier right now. And this is important because we're going into our last pick of the day, which is Vengeance Demon Hunter. And by the way, if you have any questions or if you disagree with this, of course you can let us know in the comment section down below, or check our stream at twitch.tv/Marcelian&Flame, where I actually played all of these live, talking with the chat, which that means you, and getting opinions left and right from other people who also played it. But Vengeance, it feels nice. It also lost Illuminated Sigils, so now you actually have on the right hand side of the talent tree just full on Fiery Brand talents, which is a playstyle that I always like, spreading Fiery Brand out because it's a very good defensive. However, if without Illuminated Sigils, you kind of lost a little bit of flavor there, to be honest. And the biggest issue that I just don't like this mentality whatsoever, we don't have Demonic anymore. Demonic is only a Havoc only talent, but instead we got the occasionally you are going into your meta form mechanic into the Apex talents, cosplaying as new things that are coming to the specs, which are obviously not new things because we've been having that ever since the spec has been released. So it being moved to Apex talents, I feel like it's incredibly lazy. I understand maybe they don't want Demonic out, but they will probably need to buff Vengeance baseline tankiness quite a bit, since it did rely, similar to Paladin, on a couple of layers of defensive stacking, like the parry chance from Illuminated Sigils, obviously the parry chance and armor from Demon Spikes, the damage reduction from Fiery Brand, and to an extent Immolation Aura as well. Also the interactions with the sigils, the outside of Illuminated Sigils, but also is it Painbringer, where you just stacked Painbringer and Frailty, and I think we lost the Frailty one, where Frailty doesn't have the stacks anymore, but it's just you just have it now. You just have its full power. You don't have to game it and increase your stacks, so your tankiness goes up and down based off of how many souls you consume, based off how many Frailty stacks you have or debuffs that you put out. So that's also great, and it does feel smoother to play. And if If Vengeance can be just baseline way tankier, so it doesn't need all of these stackable layers of defensives, then it can be, first of all, way more approachable for a lot of other people, but it's not quite there yet. So I'm gonna put it into A tier, and for the first, I think it's the first time where we don't have any spec into S tier. I actually do believe that none of the tanks are fun enough to be like, oh my god, this is like the best version ever. It probably is still too early, so I'm interested to see if throughout beta they get more changes, and once we play them in Mythic Plus, maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe they will actually get cool new stuff to play with, so we can actually enjoy, hopefully, an expansion with more tanks, because God knows we need them. Not as much as you need to understand how the pruning actually affected all of the DPS specs in the game, because some of them were good, some of them were not, and we made a video and ranked all of them based off, of course, our opinion. But if that's the good part, because you can argue and say that we're wrong in the comments and not hurt our feelings whatsoever.